I want to take you on a little journey, right? A little journey into a little new perspective town. So, the person that God is turning you into is you. It's the way that you were designed, right? You're not just like, you yourself are not the sin. You're not the sin behavior. You're not that. You've been influenced to believe a lie that you are. And there's this attachment to what you do and how you feel and what you think. And then that leading back to you. And then you feeling responsible for that. And then you identifying with that. But it's a false burden. Might be crazy. But hey, if this hits you, take it back to him, right? Because I don't just get on here for me, although I do it at the same time. But it's always for somebody, it's for something. Think of the Holy Spirit as the one that convicts you of the truth of who you are. So much we can think that it's this conviction of sin, and that's where it like ends. Oh, you shouldn't be doing this. I'm convicting you because you shouldn't be doing this. But why? We don't ever really go further than that, or at least I don't know why we haven't. But I've looked at this way of thinking and I've said this isn't enough. Because I've always been made to be like a weed whacker. Someone that goes in the jungle with a really long blade and just starts cutting things. And I'm just like, this is not good enough. What's the deal? And I feel like I'm discovering it's like the Holy Spirit is your teacher, the one who is teaching you, who is leading you, who's training you up in the way that you should go, the way that you were designed. You are convicted of the compromise that you have in your misidentification. Or more so, you're identifying with this whole sin thing, which that in itself is just you identifying with something that's not true. And you're only doing that because the Lord has you in a dark place, because there's a time to be in the dark and there's a time to be in the light. And it's His grace that brings you from the darkness to the light. It's not you. He wants it to be Him, so that you can see that before I can even love Him, He loves me. Before I can love Him back, He loves me. Right? Before you gave your life to Him, He gave His life to you. And you were always going to give your life to Him. Why? Because you belong to Him. You know Him. And He knows you. He knows you before you were even formed. And so when He speaks to you, He's convicting you of the compromise in the sin, which the sin is not really you. But the world has conformed you, right? Has pressed on you and said, oh, you're having these thoughts, right? You're having these lustful thoughts, or you're doing this, and anything that you're thinking about or you're taking action on, that's who you are. When that's not true. You're not what you're doing. You're not what you're thinking. You're so much greater than that. It's not greater in the sense of like one is less than the other. It's in a completely different realm. It is solid. It is good. When He made you, He said, this is good. And He never, ever changed His mind. So we have this idea, I don't like it, but I think I know why it's here. It gives man like, a reason to get up in the morning and put on his belt. Feel like he's like, he's got his Bible and he's got his coffee and he's out the door ready to just, go save people for Jesus or whatever. And it's like, oh, you're born into a fallen world. Like at your core, you're sinful, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, give your life to Jesus, otherwise you're going to be guilty of sin, blah, 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 right? It's like, okay, maybe there's some truth to it, but we've tried to make this the entire thing, and it's just put so much burdens on people. And then it's like man's choice that then becomes what's glorified, because I gave my life to Jesus. So much more than that. When He created you, He said, this is good. So at your core is goodness. It's goodness that got corrupt. A perverted thing is just a good thing that was twisted. Does it mean that you weren't good? That you were born not good? I don't like that. I don't like that. But you can like it if you want. But whoever this is for, I just feel like you're just like, yeah, no. So the Lord's training you up in the way that you should go. You personally. And so the conviction that the Holy Spirit has with you is relational. And it's not this is what I've discovered in my own, because this is all I really have to offer, guys, right? This is the expression, the witness. This is how I'm a living sacrifice or whatever, although I wouldn't really call myself these things. It's like my expression, my relationship with the Lord is what I have to offer. It's like the internal garden that he's doing in here, I'm releasing out there. Because I'm bringing heaven to earth, because what's in me is coming out. I get stopped up. Anyways. So you're compromised of what's not you. Because you're compromised of the truth of who is you. And so anything that's not you, you start to see it and you're like, oh, why am I doing this? It's not a rule. The Holy Spirit's not just trying to correct you to get you to do things that are more holy versus things that are not holy. No, everything that you do is holy because you are holy. Because you were set apart. It's not the behavior itself. It's not the action itself. Everything you do is unto the Lord. You cannot change your mind about him. Wait, actually you can. He won't ever change his mind about you. But you're convicted of who's not you. So you're like, oh, like the Holy Spirit is convicting me of sin. It's like, do you really think so? Well, I feel guilty. I feel this, or I feel conviction. Conviction is this. So he's trying to get me to do something different. But have you ever asked him why? Like, what is the heart behind that? Well, he just, it's settling. It's like, yeah, I guess so. But it's so much better than that. It's so much more personal and intimate and relational, and it has everything to do with the way that you were made. You see, the thing that's most natural to you really is the thing that is you. But then sin comes in, right? The conforming of the world, and you're like taught this thing where it's like, oh, this is bad and this is good. And then you're taught to parent yourself, which then is you bringing anything and everything to yourself, which is like the mindset of sin. It's this mindset of lack, when really you were made for abundance. That your truest self is one that depends on him fully. That's your truest self. And that's what's most natural to you. Although it doesn't feel like it, because it's like we have to unlearn all these things. But you're convicted of the compromise of your misidentification. Not the action, not the behavior. There's something that the Holy Spirit will show you in yourself after you do something that's not you. That will be like, well, why did I do that? Like this no longer brings to me the same thing that it once brought me. Why? Because he's revealing the truth about that thing. And the truth about that thing, that sinful thing, is it's not you. You are so much greater than that. So this is what you will end up doing. This is what I feel like the Holy Spirit's like game plan is. Like, it says like in the word, like you avoid temptation. I think that you will avoid temptation naturally when the Holy Spirit convicts you of who you are, which then reveals that there's compromise in that thing that once tempted you. And then since you see it for what it is, you are no longer interested. And you no longer being interested in the thing that you were once interested in is you avoiding temptation. Because I'm not tempted anymore. See, it says Jesus was tempted in the wilderness. But like, what does it mean? He was accused of something that wasn't him. But because he knew who he was, he did not fall into temptation. But I see it as this. He just wasn't interested in anything that the enemy was selling to him because he had so much more. He's like, no, my Father knows me. My Father loves me. This is who I am. But if you don't know who you are, then yes, you will be tempted and fall into sin or whatever. And here's the thing. That's just where you are. One is not better than the other in this way of like good versus bad. It's just the location of where you are. Grace at the right time will come in and make you not interested in that thing. And then there's grace for you to be in that thing. But people don't want to do that. I know why. Because it feel helpless, being like, a part of me knows that this is sin, but I keep doing it. So am I staying in it? I mean, I guess you could say that. But just be honest with yourself. I'm still interested. Why am I still interested? Well, perfect love hasn't fully come in and cast out all fear. It all goes back to God's goodness. But we want to put it on our shoulders because that's what seems most natural to us. But the Holy Spirit will convict you of the truth. And that truth will expose the compromise in the way that you identify. And then you will no longer be interested in that thing. That's how I see it going. Because anything else that you try to do out of order of that is going to end up being striving in religion. Because then it's going to be on you to avoid. And then whatever you resist is just going to push back on you. Oh, I have to make sure that I keep these things at bay. I have to make sure I keep a lock on my phone. I got to make sure I don't do this. And it's like, who are you doing that for? What are you doing? It's not on you. Let the Holy Spirit convict you of the truth of who you really are. And once you see who you really are, you'll be no longer tempted in things that are not you. So you will lose interest. This is way better than so many other things that people are saying, and you're welcome. My God, get this thing out here because it is fantastic. And it doesn't put anything on the person. This is an easy yoke. But the thing that it does show is like where you are with the Lord in terms of trust. Because the expectation that was on you to avoid is no longer on you at all. It's on Him to deliver you at the right time. It's a lot harder, but it's not something that's hard on yourself, right? Maybe I should have ended this video like 30 seconds ago. Anyways, okay. Write that down and you'll be all right. I'm kidding. Yeah, don't write it down. The Holy Spirit's already doing his whole thing. He's convicting you of the truth of who you are. That you were not made to depend on yourself. And that's really what sin is. And we only depend on ourselves because we believe less of ourselves. So we start from a place of lack. Right? Then the behavior of sin is like something way down the line. Okay? Once the thought becomes the action and all that. But it's like if you try to cut the action off without the thought, without the subconscious part, then it's just religion, it's just striving, it's just more on you. And I hope that you're not effective in that because He has a much better way than that. He wants to give you a hope in a future that's not based on your actions.